Hey, how's it going, guys? This is your boy Hazzed, and today on the 8.2 PTR, we're going to be comparing the Breath Spec to Obliteration Spec to the Icecap Spec with a recording of all three specs doing their single target DPS in different windows at the same exact time. We're going to push that to 4 minutes, and then afterwards, I'm also going to push out the Icecap build and the Breath build up to 7 minutes to see if what I think about it is exactly going to be true. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to kind of analyze what's going on with these specs at the end and kind of have a discussion where they are and whether or not they're going to be completely viable versus each other inside of PvE content.
It's who we are, it's what we do, we've come so far, and now we pay the price, so don't even cry. The world is breaking down, and I cannot leave the
So getting to the question that everyone's wondering, will Icecap and Obliteration be able to compete with Breath Spec when it comes to PvE? Because I know the majority of the Frost DKs out there are really just tired of playing Breath, and they're really hoping for some kind of new avenue to play through when it comes to PvE single target or Mythic Plus content. So let's go ahead and discuss these. As for the Breath Spec, Breath did 5,790,000 damage while doing 24.2k DPS. Now that kind of DPS, you wouldn't have trouble clearing any of the current game content, whether it's normal, heroic, or mythic, or any kind of mythic plus that you and your friends want to push up to. That kind of DPS, it wouldn't matter if you did mess up quite a few times. You'd still be able to clear most of the content. Now as for Icecap, it did 5,840,000 damage and it did 24.3k DPS that pull. Now as you can see there, it did about 50,000 more damage with Breath. Like, these two specs were neck and neck so much, it's insane. So right after the marker, when you get to, let's say, the 2 and 4 minute markers, Icecap is going to be ahead of Breath. But the moment we step past those 2 to 3 minute markers, Breath's going to jump ahead just because of the amount of burst it's able to compete with at the 2, 4, and 6 minute markers. So if you're going just to the 8 minute marker before, Icecap's going to be ahead. You go just past the marker, Breath's going to be ahead. So obviously these two specs are going to be very competitive when it comes to single target DPS or mythic DPS, whatever the heck you're doing. When it comes to consistent grind on the target, whether it's, you know, DPSing on a Mythic Plus boss or DPSing on a raid boss, it's really not going to matter. Now, the one thing I will say about these two specs was this was constant DPS. There was no mechanics involved. Imagine if there was some kind of mechanic that caused you to have to pull off the current target and completely give up on your breath. Which one of these two specs is going to come back 10 times harder than the other one? It's obviously going to be the Icecap spec. Since you're going to have a burst up much faster, you're going to be able to retain a lot more of your DPS a lot faster, and essentially you're just going to be better off. And I could actually see that being the same for a lot of the Mythic Plus DPS, because you're going to go ahead and get on a group of ads, you're going to breath on them, that's going to be your burst for 2 minutes, in comparison to, let's say, the Icecap, which you're probably going to pop pillar on them 2 to 3 times within a pull, and by the time you go on the next DPS, you're going to have your burst up on them too. So it's going to be kind of an interesting thing to see which one of these plays out to be the better spec. But if we're pulling like 25% of the dungeon, kind of like Somebody's Reaping, Breath could definitely be stronger. But overall, I gotta say, like, I'm all for Icecap at this point, seeing those comparisons. Now, as for the Obliteration spec, Obliteration fell just behind Icecap and Breath, doing only 5,600,000 damage and only pulling 23.4k DPS, putting it at about 1,000 less DPS at the 4 minute marker than the other two. Now, the thing about this spec is the further on, that's why I cut this off at 4 minutes for Obliteration, is the further you go with Obliteration, the more behind it's going to fall in comparison to Breath and Icecap spec, just because it doesn't have the constant increase of damage from Icecap or the huge burst DPS capabilities from the Breath spec when it comes to those numbers. But the difference between Icecap and Breath is literally so minute, it's almost unnoticeable in comparison. So, gotta kind of sum up these videos. What do I think about these two specs? Is Icecap going to be viable? Obviously, the proof's right there, guys. The proof's right in front of you. Like, there's nothing else anybody else could say about it. Like, literally, the proof is right there in the single target DPS. Now, if you're running what kind of build I was running, each one of them had their own specialized traits. I was running the best I could. And then I actually took each of the abilities. I made like 8 different DKs to test everything out. And of course, I went with different builds, different viable stuff, and this was the best thing that we could come up with what we had to work with. I wish the vendor was in here, we'd be able to test things out a little bit better. But overall, I honestly can't see a problem with playing any of these specs. Like, all 3 of them, I could play in heroic or mythic scenarios, kill bosses, not have a problem. I wouldn't get kicked from the raid for having too low DPS or anything like that. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Down in the comments below, let me know which one of these specs are you most excited to play in 8.2. I'm kind of curious to see which way you guys are leaning when it comes to PvE and PvP. Yeah, give me an answer to both, actually. I'm kind of curious which one you guys are kind of leaning towards. So, hope you guys, again, enjoyed this video. I wanted to make this up so you guys can see for yourselves with your own eyes, so you don't have to rely on, you know, that simulator content that just like you don't even come at me with that simulator content. It's like trying to tell a pro BMX rider how to ride a bike, but you're still riding with training wheels. All right, don't come at me with that simulator crap. All right, But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, leave a like if you did. And until next time, this was your boy Hazzed.